Hello random person, Sabnino here. If you guys saw my SpongeBob third film title reaction vid, I stated that I would make a video comparing the first two films. Well, here it is. This topic is rather interesting to say the least, because I know everyone liked the first film, but I heard mixed reactions on the second one from both casual and long-term fans. Some really like it, some think it's better than the first film, while other people think it sucks compared to the first film. Some can't pick which one is better, like myself. Instead of reviewing them separately, I'm gonna talk about certain sections and decide which film did it better. So let's begin, shall we? After this cheesy intro.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Absorbent and yellow and porous is he?
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Hypnotical nonsense be something you wish.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
And drop on the deck and flop like a fish.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Ready? SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants!
Once upon a time, under the sea, there was a little town called Bikini Bottom.
The plot of the first film is so iconic I don't even have to explain it. Plankton steals Neptune's crown and accuses Krabs that he stole it. He gets frozen, so SpongeBob and Patrick have to go to Shell City and get the crown, save the town, and Mr. Krabs. The plot is a great change of pace for the series. It gives the movie a darker tone, threatening stakes, and keeps you invested through almost the entire situation. However, the second film is a lot more complicated. Brigadier gets a magic book, he steals a formula while SpongeBob and Plankton fight over it. SpongeBob tries proving Plankton's innocence, causing Bikini Bottom to turn into a Mad Max. SpongeBob teaches Plankton about
TM work.
while trying to form a TM. Time travel, Burger Beard battle, and that's only the shortened version. It flows rather well, but for an actual story, I don't think it works. There's too much clutter and needs more substance. So I think the first film definitely has a much better story.
What you really wanted was inside you all along.
Are you crazy? I was just gonna tell you that your fly is down.
Since SpongeBob is a comedy, this is rather important. In the first film, there are some memorable lines.
Hello, I like money.
You don't need a license to drive a sandwich.
Can I have everybody's attention? I have to use the bathroom. Some kind of wall of psychic energy.
But also has quite a bit of lowbrow and amateur jokes as well.
Plan Z. I love Plan Z.
Did you see my butt?
I won't have you stalling this execution.
Stalling? I'm not stalling anything.
Yes, you are. You're doing it right now.
I'm stalling.
Yes!
So, you think I'm stalling?
So the comedy is rather mixed. That's okay, since it's a more story-driven movie. However, the second film has quite a bit of memorable moments and some clever dialogue.
Sounds to me like someone's just a wee bit broke.
Cyclops to laptop. Come in, laptop.
Laptop. You do realize that nickname is demeaning. I have twice the processing power of a laptop.
Wait a minute. Molecular deconstruction? I proved that to be a scientific impossibility 7 times.
Wait a minute. I think I forgot to empty Gary's litter box today.
Aren't you overreacting a bit?
Did they outlaw clothes in the future?
No!
Then why are you naked?
Because they don't make clothes in my size.
And yeah, some are rather lowbrow,
You better keep reading, Mr. Pirate. Or else.
but I think the well-written comedy kinda outweighs the groan-worthy jokes, which I think makes up for the cluttered story. Sponge out of water hands down.
I was selfish and evil until you ruined everything with your teamwork.
You take that back.
You are the worst teammate ever!
This is something the first movie does really well. During the whole film, SpongeBob and Patrick go through some really believable conflicts about being childlike. They're really confident in some scenes, but in other scenes they have doubt if they can even make it in time. Sometimes they have serious talks in between. They hide their insecurities at certain moments. And that scene where they almost die from lacking of water is the real tearjerker. The drama works well with the subplots as well, Squidward calling out Plankton, and King Neptune's feud with SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs have some real tension building. And SpongeBob's emotional speech really stuck with me over the years. In Sponge Out of Water, they have some emotional scenes too, like SpongeBob seeing his town destroyed, and his little conflict with Plankton is very well written in my opinion.
I can't believe you thought I was lying!
Hey, don't take it personally. I just assume everyone is lying.
That is a horrible way to live your life.
Whatever.
It is!
Same goes with their argument over the bottle incident. And the epic speech SpongeBob gives in this film is pretty good too. Not as good as the first film, but it's up there. However, the comedy does drag down some scenes, like how SpongeBob's speech ends.
You heard him.
And in the live action scenes, there is a part where SpongeBob gets hit with a cannon and admits defeat, but Patrick keeps making these annoying comments. Just watch!
But the discomfort I feel in my eyes is nothing compared to the shame I feel for letting down the patty.
Yeah, SpongeBob, you really blew it.
No, Patrick, we blew it as a team.
Nope, this one's on you.
However, there is some tension in some scenes, like the battle scene in the beginning. And the sacrifice bit, though short, was great, especially Mr. Krabs' line.
Don't cry, me boy. Everything's gonna be fine. For us.
Overall, the first film all the way.
Every greasy spoon has a fry cook, and the one who worked here was named SpongeBob SquarePants.
The first film did a decent job with SpongeBob and Patrick. They seem rather in character and do have some good chemistry. Though unfortunately, they are rather immature at times, and at certain points they can be annoying. But at the same time, it is justified, since that's the message. However, the rest of the characters completely get the shaft. Sandy, Pearl, and Mrs. Puff only get one line. Mr. Krabs is frozen, which kinda makes sense for the plot, and Squidward falls into a trap. So they might as well not be in the film at all. Outside of Mr. Krabs, since, again, plot. However, I think the second film fixes this. SpongeBob in this is a healthy balance between both mature and childish. Patrick does get the shaft a little bit, but I think he has enough screen time. Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and even Sandy help move the plot forward as well. Even Gary gets a fantastic cameo as the King of Snails, and chasing Plankton at the end. And Bubble Bass gets a cameo. Because Bubble Bass. Sponge Out of Water definitely wins this round. I didn't even have to think twice.
Who can stop me now?
The first film has a ton of them. Plankton, King Neptune, Dennis, the Giant Cyclops, the Thug Tug, they're almost all great. King Neptune can be threatening at times, Dennis is a freaking badass. The Giant Cyclops is a flat-out monster in the eyes of the characters. The thugs are a great blend of comedy and looking pretty tough. And one of them is even eating a bowl of nails, without any milk. However, despite the fact that Plankton is a pretty good antagonist, they kinda had to sacrifice some of his character. I feel like he lost his charming edge from the series I love so much. Though I do like some of the jokes, they could have done a better job with him. Sponge Out of Water, on the other hand, doesn't really have that many antagonists, since the conflict is more about the situation. Plankton starts off as a villain, and does much better than the first film in terms of character, though he's actually a good guy in this film. The crowd does a good job too with raising the stakes. Bubbles is kind of average. I don't really think of him as a real threat. First film.
Good luck, SpongeBob.
Wait! How did you know my name?
Oh, I'm gonna be Queen of the Sea one day. I've learned the names of all the sea creatures.
I already talked about the new villains in the first film, so really the only ones I have to talk about are Mindy and Hasselhoff. Mindy's pretty cool, not that complex, but she does serve a purpose. And Patrick's little crush on her is pretty adorable. And David Hasselhoff is amazing. Best crossover of all time. Not much to say, he is God. The second film has Bubbles the Illuminati Dolphin. Yeah, don't think I didn't notice that, you sneaky little bastards. He's pretty funny in my opinion. I love how cheesy he is, and I also love the fact that he has Tourette's syndrome. As someone who deals with it, that's exactly what it's like.
You were supposed to keep the them from smashing into each other.
Burger Beard is in another category, but for the seagulls...
SpongeBob's in trouble and the story's over?
Shut up! Shut up! You serve no purpose. You obnoxious, potty wannabes. Let Burger Beard put you out of your misery. It's a tie. Those sequels are just freaking awful. Both characters in the film are equally memorable and share roughly the same amount of screen time. The pirates of the first film don't really do much. They just sing the SpongeBob theme song and watch the film, and that's it. They're okay. Not fantastic, but not bad either. Though their blubbering after SpongeBob and Patrick's death is insulting.
That's the end of SpongeBob.
You wanted me to cry, so why are you mocking me for it?
Shut up and look at the screen!
Burger Beard in the second film has more screen time, though... he's just evil Patchy in my eyes. He's over the top, poorly acted, his motivation is confusing, and just a non-threatening antagonist. And his jokes are lackluster outside of the autopilot pun, and how the book is overdue. It's another tie. They're both mediocre at best.
Do you still have that bag of wins?
I sure do. Here you go.
In both films, they show up around the same time. In the first film, they do a good job. There's some good jokes, the battle on Hasselhoff's back is pretty intense, and Shell City is pretty fun to look at too, especially when they beat up the Cyclops. Though in Sponge Out of Water, they do a lot more. The gang ends up on the beach, they have some comedic slapstick, their bike ride was pretty cool, running into Burger Beard leads them to Pelican Island, and the superhero climax, though an obvious cash grab, is pretty cool. Sponge Out of Water, which is ironic considering the title.
Alright, Mr. Krabs, let me get in on this.
What's going on around here?
Both films have the advantage of making it look like an upgraded SpongeBob episode. The first film has a fantastic frame rate, a great use of bubbles, and some wonderful water effects. However, the color palette of the characters is very off. Squidward's a little bit too blue, Mr. Krabs is a little bit too red, SpongeBob's too bright, Plankton's too dark, and Shell City has the characters come off as nightlights. Also, the outlines are inconsistent. Sometimes they upgrade the outlines like in the manager scene, while in other scenes they just outline the characters like in the show. In the second film, however, not only did they correct the color palette, they went overboard with the attention to detail, shading, effects, and even the backgrounds. SpongeBob's holes have these nice gradient to them. The backgrounds have these floating particles. I even spotted this one scene where SpongeBob's house is destroyed and covered in slime, and the slime is slowly moving. However, the frame rate is much slower than the first film, just making it look like the series. And other than this SpongeBob breathing scene and the surface shot, it doesn't look as aquatic as the first film either. I'd have to say Sponge Out of Water. Though if both films were to combine both of their positive elements, it would look almost perfect. And lastly, this topic is very interesting to talk about because both films use different mediums. The first film uses traditional animation, kind of like what they've been doing for the entire film, just with similar shading to the second film. They do a good job. It's no Roger Rabbit or anything, but they pull off what they want to accomplish. And they blend in with the rest of the world pretty well, especially Dennis on Bigger Boot, the Cyclops holding SpongeBob and Patrick, and even SpongeBob holding the colored rocks is very visually impressive for the time. The second film uses CG, which isn't surprising. Who doesn't use CG nowadays? But despite the fact a lot of movies have done CG and live-action hybrids, this one does an amazing job. The textures on the characters are extremely photorealistic, but despite that, they still make the characters look as cartoony as their 2D counterparts. I can literally trace over the 3D and it would look exactly like the cartoon. The superhero parts are cool too. It's just SpongeBob on steroids. However, the color palette is kinda inconsistent. Not really noticeable by first glance, but once you watch it as many times as I have, which is probably 10 at this point, it can be rather noticeable. The regular character designs have a similar palette than in the show, just with a warmer hue to them. But when they're superheroes, their palette is exactly like in the cartoon. Kinda like my 3D models, but obviously much better. Despite the fact that I prefer 2D over 3D, Sponge Out of Water beats the first film by a long shot. Now for the verdict. Holy fish face, Sponge Out of Water won by an inch. I guess it makes sense in some cases. It does have some better animation, better comedy, better use of the characters, and the film as a whole is pretty good, yet flawed. I can safely say that with both of the films, actually. Pretty good, yet flawed. I'd honestly recommend both of them so you can decide which one is better. If you want more of a plot and drama, I'd recommend the first film. If you want something more comedic and character driven, I'd pick the second film. Hope you enjoyed this video though, and please let me know what movies or show you want me to talk about in the future, either good or bad. I need some negative reviews anyway. And with that said, eat some mochi, watch cartoons, and drink some boba. Hasta la vista!